we hunger for it. You see, those people were gathering right next to the water, and do you know what the name of the sea was? The Sea of Tiberias. The Romans were everywhere. The cultural power of the empire was everywhere. And here they are, just like we are, huddled on the shore of someone else's empire, seeking to be fed by another power in the smallest and most delightful of ways. And then later in the story, there we are again, out on the sea, seemingly all alone, pulling against heavy winds and high waves, and suddenly, to our amazement, one whom we have sought and loved and thought we had lost is there, walking upon the very storm we fear, and calls us out to go, calls us to step out. And some of us go out in our heroic moments and we fall flat on our faces. Well, we do that as people of faith, but then we're scooped up and put into the boat, and suddenly that storm is over. That storm surge is over for the moment, and we find ourselves within a companionship that is unshakable. We have one another's company, and we shall live to row and fight and feed another day. So our water word is presence. We live with a presence. And so, across uncharted territory, where you cross the roads, where land and water meets, you begin to see meaning for yourself, for ourselves. We are swamped in an adulterated culture full of other things, and yet we are finding day by day the guts and the moments to carry on. I have a friend at home who lost his wife. They had been university sweethearts, and he loved her very much, and he was totally at loose ends for a year and a half. One day he came to my office and said, a flyer blew up against my door the other day, advertising an engineering conference at an English cathedral, and I'm a retired engineer, so I thought maybe I'd go just to try to get away from my broken heart. And so he made arrangements, and the day before the flight he came to me. He said, I have the strangest feeling about this flight. I said, do you mean it's going to crash? Oh, no, he said, just a very strange feeling about this whole thing. I said, well, make sure you tell me what happens. Well, back he came. It was the most remarkable thing. I went to the cathedral, was introduced to the woman who organized the event, and when she turned around, she was the spitting image of my dead wife. The spitting image of her. As a matter of fact, I was so stunned, after a few moments, she said, are you all right? He said, I'm not all right at all. And we talked for a while, and I showed her pictures of my first wife from my laptop, and the dean of the cathedral came through and took a look over my shoulder and said, oh my God. Well, later on that day, the woman said, I'd like my husband to see these pictures. Would you phone tomorrow and come to our house? And he said, certainly. So the next morning he called and he met the husband over the phone. And the husband said, yes, you're the gentleman with the pictures. I have to tell you that my wife died last night. And my friend said, she died? He said, yes, she died last night. She's been ill for a long time, and she felt she didn't want to go to the cathedral yesterday, but felt she had to go. And when she came home, she said to me, as soon as I saw his face, I knew that's the reason I had to be there. And we talked about you all night, and this morning she died. I wonder, he said, if you would meet my daughter in London about a week from now after the service, just to speak to her. And so a week later, my friend met this young woman in front of the London Tube, and up from the underground she came. He said, the spitting image of my first wife when we met in university. And we had lunch together, and at the end of the lunch, she said, my mother told my father to give you a message, and the message was, anyone who has loved as you have is going to be all right. He said, I felt like $1 million. Later on, upon reflecting on it, several months later, I said to him, well, what do you make of it? He said, I've had this experience 4 times in my life. When I turned in the line at the football game at university and saw my wife standing behind me and saying, that's the woman I'm going to marry. And then when our son was killed and we were at the funeral home and all his friends were milling around, and she caught my eye across the room and smiled. And then when I met the woman in the cathedral, and then when I met her daughter, 4 times. And I may never have it again, and I don't need to have it again. What do you think it is? I said. I believe it's the love of God, said my friend. We live in uncharted territory, and every day is new. But there are crossroads where the land, the sure things meet the water, places we are unsure, and when we pay attention there, we find ourselves companioned by something so rich and so mighty that we are encouraged to step out today and tomorrow and forever.